Let's move on to our next speaker. Our second speaker is one of the youngest leaders in the film industry. He is the managing director of Sony Pictures Entertainment India, and under his leadership, Sony has delivered two back-to-back hits in 2018 with Akshay Kumar starrer Padman and Amitabh Bachchan Rishi Kapoor starrer 102 Not Out. Some of the key highlights of his career include his stint as Senior Vice President of MSM Motion Pictures, where he led the marketing and distribution of the biggest hit of 2015, the Shojit Sarkar's Piku. Vivek was also part of the original leadership team of Fox Star Studios, where he headed distribution, marketing, and syndication. He, along with his team, successfully released films like Avatar, the Ice Age series, the X-Men series, Life of Pi, Slumdog Millionaire, My Name is Khan, and several others. He was a member of the team that was responsible for the launch of Pogo Channel in India. Two other highlights of Vivek's career have been his time at Radio City, where he was part of the startup team that set up the radio station in 4 cities. Prior to that, Vivek was a member of the strategic planning and marketing team at Star Plus and was involved in the transition of Star Plus from an English to a Hindi channel and for the launch of the popular game show Kaun Banega Crorepati. He is a foodie, an avid traveler with a keen interest in spirituality. Let's put our hands together for this superstar TED speaker, Vivek Krishnani.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me today. I actually knew I was coming for the print summit, so actually instead of getting my iPad, I actually printed my speech on the HP LaserJet 410 series, if that means anything to you. But thank you once again for inviting me today, and I was actually supposed to be here last year, but due to some emergency, I couldn't make it. So when Vishwanath Shetty, he came to me and he kind of invited me to come and speak. He said, why don't you come and talk to us about, because our industry is going through challenges in the face of changing technology. So why don't you come and talk about what's happening in your industry? And I said, but we two, our industries are quite separate and it's not, there can't be any parallels. That's when I kind of thought about the fact that even though our industries are separate, the challenges that are facing common legacy industries are the same. That is, we need to learn how to embrace change and how to stay relevant. Talking about change, I just want to share a very funny anecdote about how I realized that change is tough. 3 days ago, I was at this wedding Sangeet, and I don't want to brag, I kind of shake a leg pretty well, and I dance pretty okay. So all the ladies from the from the bride's side wanted to come and kind of dance with me. And I said, why are these aunties wanting to kind of dance with me? And then, no offense meant. And then I kind of, when I figured out, I said, but I found out that they were the same age as I was. Then it kind of struck me that, probably from what has happened, I've changed to being an uncle. And the reality is still not sunk in. Moving on, I want to kind of talk about a person, before we kind of get into the depth of the presentation, somebody who's I've worked closely with, who's had a very important impact as an inspiration to me, somebody who actually stands for weathering change and the epitome of becoming truly relevant in today's times. And he's my hero, and I'm sure most of you idolize him as well. And I want to talk about Mr. Bachchan. I'm sure most of you know that he went through really difficult times, starting with his accident at the Coolie set, where he was almost dead. And then he came back from the dead to face financial ruin in the year 2000 when his company went bust. His films were not working. His films like Lal Badshah and all of these films really kind of were not working. And he was out of work. And he then, in all his humility, found out that he cannot continue to play a hero with black hair and the angry young man that he was. and he heard that this film Mohabbatein was being directed by Yash Chopra ji, he actually walked from his house to Yash Chopra ji's house and actually begged him for work. And that's how he got his kind of comeback into Indian cinema with his white beard and his black hair. And that's a true comeback of a real hero. He was also one of the very few to realize the impact that television was going to have in the years to come. That's when he decided to become the host on KBC. The host on KBC. It's a project that I really kind of had the opportunity to be a part of the first launch of KBC in India. KBC happened to him. It changed his fortunes, and it also changed the fortunes of Star and the television industry forever. KBC actually reminds me of an incident when I was working at Star, and there was this meeting that Mr. Murdoch was a part of, and it said that Star was at number 3. There was Z, there was Sony, and there was Star, and Mr. Murdoch was in the room, and at that time the show was actually going to be called Kaun Banega Lakhpati, and so he said, "Hey, what's a lakh?" So somebody from the audience, from the group said, "It's $2,500. The dollar was 40 rupees then. So $2,500. He says, $2,500? Is that good enough to move the needle in India? So the guy said, no. He says, what's good enough to move the needle? He said, 1 crore. He says, how much is that? He said, $250,000. Without blinking an eye, he said, done. But when I come back, I need to see the fortunes of our company reversed. It was this particular risk that he took that actually set the entire company on the path of innovation. I'd like to kind of share a quote with you. That today companies have to radically revolutionize themselves every few years just to stay relevant. That's because technology and internet have transformed the business landscape forever. The fast-paced digital age has accelerated the need for companies to become agile. And it's not far away, it's now. It is happening to everybody right now. We have to take cognizance of the fact that change is inevitable. Here are some examples of companies that what happens when you kind of fail to innovate. I'd like to kind of share this funny cartoon about where it says that don't tell them we failed, tell them we decided to temporarily postpone our success. I'd like to share some examples of companies that have failed to innovate, and I'm sure probably most of you obviously know about some of these, but here's a refresher. The first one is Kodak. As you all know, a technology company that dominated the photographic film market during the 20th century. The company blew its chance to lead the digital photography revolution as they were in denial for too long. Steve Sasson, the Kodak engineer, actually invented the first digital camera back in 1975. But it was filmless photography, so management's reaction was, that's cute, but don't tell anyone about it. So the leaders of Kodak failed to see digital photography as a disruptive technology, and a former vice president of Kodak says this. We developed the first consumer digital camera, but we could not get approval to launch or sell it because of the fear of the effects on the film market. That talks about how a myopic view and the desire to kind of just hold on to what you think is going to be working for you and without wanting to take any risk. The management was so focused on the film success that they missed the digital revolution after actually starting it. Kodak actually filed for bankruptcy in 2012. And now it's trying to make a comeback. The next example I want to talk about is Nokia. Nokia was a company founded in Finland, as all of you know, and was the first to create a cellular network. In the late 1990s and the early 2000s, Nokia was the global leader in mobile phones. With the arrival of the internet, other mobile companies started understanding how data, not voice, was the future of communication. Nokia didn't grasp that. The concept of software and kept focusing on the hardware because the management feared to alienate current users. Because if they changed too much, Nokia's mistake was the fact that they didn't want to lead the drastic change in user experience. This caused Nokia to develop a mess of an operating system with a bad user experience that just wasn't fit on the market. In 2007, Steve Jobs launched the iPhone, and that was history for Nokia. In 2008, Nokia finally made the decision to compete with Android, but was too late, and their products were not competitive enough. It's a classic case of a company that's enthralled and in a way imprisoned by its own success. The last example that I want to share with you is about Yahoo. What went wrong with Yahoo? It was once worth $125 billion, but today they sold to Verizon for $5 billion. In 2005, Yahoo was one of the main players in the online advertising market. But because Yahoo undervalued the importance of search, the company decided to focus more on becoming a media giant. The decision to focus more on media meant they neglected consumer trends and a need to improve the user experience. Yahoo managed to gain a massive number of viewers to view content, but failed to make enough of a profit in order to scale. For example, they also lost a lot of opportunities that could have saved them. In 2002, they almost had a deal with Google, which they didn't go through. In 2006, Yahoo had a deal to buy Facebook, but when they lowered their offer to Mark Zuckerberg backed out. If the company had taken a few additional risks, maybe we would all be Yahooing right now instead of Googling. There are many such examples, like the Sony Walkman, Polaroid, etc., which we can talk about. But there are three reasons why companies do not succeed. One is, obviously, like we discussed, it's holding on to the past and being risk averse. The second is failure to understand the changing consumer behavior. And the third is to undermine the changes in the environment and fail to adapt, having a myopic view and not seeing the big picture. This is very true. If you do what you always did, you will get what you always got. And I think it cannot be more important to say that how it is important to remain relevant in today's time. So how does an organization that has been relevant for so long actually become irrelevant? Here's how it happens. When the speed of change outside an organization is faster than the speed of change inside an organization, the organization becomes irrelevant. This is true for individuals as well. If the speed of change around you in the environment and you haven't kept up to speed, then you become irrelevant. And now for the fact of the matter is, speed is now even faster. What took 10 years earlier is now taking 10 months, and things are becoming irrelevant faster. So how do we remain truly relevant to our audience? I'd like to kind of share 7 steps to kind of remain relevant with our current audience. And here are some examples that I'd like to share with you about what people from our movie industry are doing in that particular regard. The first one is we need to spend time where our audience spends time. And here I'd like to give an example about the famous actor and filmmaker Aamir Khan. Aamir is somebody who's actually known to get the film ready almost 6 months in advance. And then he researches the film with every kind of demographic possible. He goes to auto drivers, he goes to peons, he goes to dabbawalas. He shows the films to everybody because he spends the time listening to them, taking feedback from them, trying to figure out what is wrong with them, making those changes, because he connects with them and he spends time with the audiences and takes feedback to make a difference to them and to himself. The second one is connect in ways that your audience wants to connect. Again, here's the example of Mr. Bachchan, who at 77 years is probably the most active digital native that we know. He's the most relevant of the stars amongst his era, and even amongst the younger generation, he's even more popular on Twitter than the younger guys. His followers are about 40 million compared to about 11 million of Varun Dhawan. So there are no shortage of ways to communicate. The challenge for us when it comes to staying relevant is ensuring that we are communicating in ways that are relevant to the market. If our target audience is embracing new social media platforms and we are not, clearly there are issues ahead. The next one is about effective communication, means engaging. Movie marketing is about engaging with audiences and creating appeal for the movies that we make and ensuring that the movie becomes connected and relevant to audiences. It is important for people to share feedback on the content that is being shared, and nowadays feedback is instant, good or bad. So if you have to remain relevant, communication needs to be more about a two-way process rather than a one-way process. Staying aware of what your competitors are doing without being obsessed. I'd like to kind of share a little bit about a grapevine about what's happening in the movie industry. There's a gentleman called Mr. Anil Kapoor. He has a gym. And in his gym, in his locker, he's got photographs of all the young actors. And he basically, before he goes for a workout, he opens his locker, he looks at those guys, and he says that, I'm better than you. And as you can see, his track record, he's fitter than most people, he's doing action sequences, and he's still relevant in today's day and age. That's because he's keeping track of what the people in his industry are doing. Next point is know the trends heading your way and have a strategy to take advantage of them. Again, I'd like to share an example of somebody from our industry, Akshay, who I've worked with as part of a film that we did called Padman. Akshay Kumar was actually typecast, and in certain roles, and when he kind of realized that audiences are getting bored of the same stuff that he kept doing. He's one of the first stars to realize that audiences will move on if he does not become relevant. He started with Rustam and hasn't looked back. We did a film with him called Padman recently, and last year, if you look at this 2019, 2020, his entire box office has been 730 crores, only credited to Akshay. There will always be game changers coming along, and disruption is a word that we are all familiar with. We need to be open-minded and ready for it. We need to welcome critical thinking within an organization. There are lots of actors who were in vogue, but now have lost touch after a big hit, and they're unable to make a comeback because they're surrounded by people who are yes men, who do not give them an objective feedback in fear that they lose perspective, and then when they lose perspective, they lose a connect with the audiences. So it's important to have people who are providing critical feedback to you within the organization. The last one is about embracing cross-industry innovation. All too often, we look for innovation within our own business or our own industry. We are far more likely to find innovative ideas that we can adapt and use in our own business or from outside our industry. Staying relevant to our target market is a challenge for every business, but is becoming increasingly urgent as consumers are drawn to all things new. Talking about cross-industry now, I'd like to move a bit of a focus and get a little bit religious. When I mean religious, I mean talking about the movie business, because movies are a religion in our country. We keep thinking about it in our business of entertainment as to how to stay relevant with the advent of OTT. Everybody out here is a consumer of some digital platform or the other, watching content on either Netflix or Amazon or Hotstar or Z5 or whatever. And the TV business and the theatrical business is actually feeling the heat. The cinema is dead, is what some naysayers have been saying. But when people say that your product is going to die, don't take them seriously. Someone important said that the rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. Cinema initially competed with theaters and musical performances. With the advent of VHS players and cable TV, it was decried that who will watch movies in theaters? But producers realized and created characters and situations larger than life, which brought people to theaters. When CDs and DVDs and cable operators came, they said, who will go to the cinema? That gave rise to larger-than-life narratives and spectacular cinema, rather than the emotional dramas and tragedies that adorned the silver screen then. Those were then. These are our current challenges. For a population of 1.2 billion, we make over 1,776 films. That means 35 films a week is what is made. Now, the number of screens that we have are only 9,700 in India. When you compare it to China, which has about 65,000 screens, when you compare it to India, which compared to US, which has about 55,000 screens. So India is fairly underscreened as a market. If you look at the main languages that we have, it's about 10 languages that movies are released in. And with 9,000 screens, it's not enough. Every film is played for a week. The shelf life is a week, and in most cases, it's probably 3 days. So you have to be relevant to your audience to ensure that you continue in cinema for long. Also, in terms of tax structure, and I'm sure this is something that you guys are very familiar about, where we are supposed to have one nation, one tax, in our kind of business, the local municipalities are allowed to actually charge something called as an LBET, which is a local body entertainment tax in addition to the GST. and that LBET is not offset. So that is a hit that comes to us. So the cost of the tickets increases and therefore impacts footfalls for us. So there is basically an onslaught to us from all sides. There's less number of screens, there's government regulation that's impacting us, and when it comes to now the OTT, there's a proliferation of OTT platforms. Everybody is asking this question, that with so many OTT platforms, why do I need to go to cinema? How is cinema relevant to me? And that is something that we've been also figuring out the hard way. With apps like Netflix, Hotstar, Amazon, and Z, the films come on the digital platforms in 45 days. So there is no urgency to watch. People are getting choosy about the kind of films that they want to watch in cinema. So people are not going to cinemas as often and preferring to watch content in the comfort of their houses or on the small screens. Ours is a extremely dynamic business with audience tastes changing, and technology is disrupting these existing business models. So what do? We are in the movie business. At the end of the day, we have to have people coming to cinemas. What we've been seeing is that from the time we know, movies have continued to entertain us and provided an escape mechanism from the stressful lives we live. Houseful was a common sight in most theaters, and tickets were available in black, but not anymore. There's multiplex growth, but it's stagnated because of the general environment where we are. Movies in the last couple of years have seen less people turn up at the theaters. There seems to be a creative bankruptcy where we were dishing out the same old stuff in new packaging and were not up to speed with audience preferences. The audiences are really smart. If we have to get them to drive to the theaters, find parking, put their hands in their pocket and spend the money for the ticket and the popcorn and the soft drink, they need their money and time's worth. If you look at big movies, today if we have movies with big stars, there is no guarantee of success. Neither is a huge scale of visual effects, if VFX, if not backed by good content. We make over 2,000 movies a year. And you know how many actually make money in our business? 10%. We need to realize that content is king and audience is the emperor. If you talk about the breakout hits, and this is a slightly kind of one-year-old chart, today we see a lot of breakout hits which are purely based on great stories. Films like Hindi Medium, Badai Ho, etc. And in recent times where we've kind of seen films like Bala and so on and so forth, and our own film 102 Not Out, which connect with audiences and makes them want to recommend them. Also, we need to understand the changing audience dynamics. The concept of romance that existed in films in the past has changed to become what we see in films like Kabir Singh. The secret here is important that we create content that excites and entertains people, stirs their imagination, lifts boredom, and gives them an escape from their day-to-day lives and brings them to the theaters. We have no option but to innovate into the future of content creation and ride the next wave. We have to look at disruptive innovations which are the way ahead. Content in OTT has also promised interactivity, where you can decide the fate of the story, and this is something that's been explored in cinema as well. I don't know how many of you have actually seen Bandersnatch or interacted with this particular thing on Netflix. What it allows you to do is that it takes you up to a point in the show and then gives you an option whether you want to choose a red door or the green door. When you choose a red door, then you go ahead and it gives you an option whether you want to go up the stairs or down the stairs. It's a very interactive medium, and it's something that's been experimented world over, trying to build in some kind of newness and stickiness for the particular program. We are trying to experiment on this with the movie business as well. Even though the mode of consuming content has diversified, but the need for stories and entertainment haven't changed. For this, we need good writers, because if there's no script, there is no film. But writers are a rare commodity, and due to the OTT onslaught right now, the talent pool is becoming scarce. There are 67 web shows as we speak being shot at the moment. But we are seeing interesting developments in the space using artificial intelligence. I was watching an interesting video by Bernard Marr, which says, can artificial intelligence write better than people? There is work going on in the space where artificial intelligence is being used for creative writing. The New York Times has a website where you get challenged if you guess that the sentence is written by a person or a machine. While many people in the world are worrying about that robots will take over human jobs once AI is fully developed, it's a safe bet that no one put actually author at the top of the robo job list. Yet now, a Japanese AI program has co-authored a short-form novel that passed the first round of screening for a national literary prize. The robot-written novel didn't win the final prize, but who's to say it won't improve in its next attempt? There are other challenges, like working with animals or talent availability, but we have found a way out of it, creating worlds and creatures that are real. For example, stuff like Lion King and Avatar. In this particular case, if you see what we're looking at doing, is the entire screen where the lion is fully computer graphics. And if you see between the two here, can you make out which is the one of the, with Mark Ruffalo, which one is CG and which one is real? Left one is real? Left one is CG, right one is real. That's the CG and that is real. While media and entertainment industry was one of the first sectors of business to navigate digital disruption, its transformation is far from over. These days, the future of entertainment is synonymous with the future of technology. From live events to gaming to sports, the folks behind our favorite weekend outings are getting even more creative thanks to the limitless possibilities of advanced innovation. There are two kinds of specific technology I can speak about today. One is augmented reality. Let me play an example for you as to what's happening here. Augmented reality apps, does it play? Augmented reality apps and hardware will allow film and TV shows to become more immersive in ways that 3D glasses can only dream of. Augmented reality can be used to bring films entirely off the screen, extending the visual story into the real world. Foreign films and TV shows could also be given subtitles in real time without needing to find specially dubbed versions. Even reading a book, in this case something that you guys are all familiar with, or magazine, can benefit from augmented reality by integrated multimedia content into the physical book or magazine page using augmented reality reading glasses. Here's an example of this Africa's national book, where they actually kind of engage with people using print medium as well as augmented reality. Anyway, ultimately, there's no telling what is the limit when it comes to augmented reality apps. The new innovations in AR promise an entirely new idea of what entertainment can be. Next one is virtual reality. Let me share with you an example of what they're doing with the circus in Germany. Cruelty to animals is something that is very important. Hence, it is a holographic circus. Can you please play that from there? So interesting things are actually happening in the space of VR and creating entertainment options for people without actually kind of harming the environment or cruelty to animals, as in this particular case. One of the best examples of immersive entertainment is use of VR in gaming. Sony PlayStation is one of the world's largest gaming platforms. Sony has launched the PS4 with VR capability in 2016 and sold 4.2 million VR headsets, which is proof of its popularity. It has the capability of placing you right in the thick of the action and you become a part of the environment. And if you're not good at it, here's what happens to you. The other utility is sports. For a long time, fans have had two options for watching sports: paying money to go to the games or staying at home and watching the broadcast on television. The rise of VR and 5G, however, is opening up new opportunities for sports broadcasting. Through VR, one could actually place themselves in the game, choosing the individual viewpoints. Example, in cricket, one could watch the game from the umpire's point of view or from anywhere in the stadium. You can pause, play, and rewind and watch your favorite shot from any angle. The big game changer, as we all know it, will be 5G. Speed is 100 times faster than 4G, so the opportunities are limitless and probably the rise of the fourth industrial revolution. From a content perspective, the opportunities to innovate in the next 5 years and beyond are seemingly endless. Finally, I'd like to end by sharing a small video of what Printworks Summit could finally look like in a few years from now with virtual speakers. Have a look. Can you please play the video?
I don't speak Japanese, but what if I wanted to deliver my keynote in Japanese? Using Azure AI technology, I can translate my English into Japanese and train it to sound exactly like me. The same voice tones, those same inflections. Now we brought this together, my hologram and Azure AI, to show you what's possible. So first, I'm gonna put on my HoloLens 2 here, and then we'll flip in the room to the special camera so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Let's get started. First, let me introduce you to Mini-Me. There she is, my perfect holograph. And thanks to the power of HoloLens 2, she just floats right with me. I'm literally holding my hologram, so natural. Now she's a little small to do a keynote. So let's get her up so she can do full-size Japanese keynote. Render keynote.
I think I made the point here that it is possible that today I'm speaking to you in person. Tomorrow it could be you listening to my holograph. Thank you, everybody. Get future ready.
Thank you so much. Please stay on stage. Please stay on stage. I'm going to now request Vishwanath Shetty to please come up on stage and thank Vivek Krishnani from our side. Vivek Krishnani loves the BMPA. Last time he was to speak here and he couldn't make it. And with one phone call, he got Siddharth Roy Kapoor to come and address us, and what a wonderful address that was. So this time we've got a special request for you, sir. Next year, we want Amitabh Bachchan to come here and address us. Please. Big round of applause. Vivek Krishnani, please. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Vishi. Thank you so much.